Hi, I'm Melinda Hashimoto from Egg Farmers of Australia. I'm going to assume that you all love eggs, so it's time for a quick egg pop quiz. What's your favourite way to enjoy eggs? Now, look, I know I'm not there in person, but please don't be shy and stick up your hand. Put your hands up if you prefer them scrambled, poached, fried, or boiled. If your preference today was for scrambled, then you now belong to an elite worldwide breakfast club. According to several international surveys, scrambled eggs is the most preferred way to eat your eggs globally. In Britain, 49% of people like their eggs scrambled, with 45% eating them boiled, while in the United States, 36% of egg eaters like to have them scrambled, followed by fried eggs sunny side up. Interestingly, people with no children prefer them scrambled, while families with 4 or more kids prefer fried eggs. As the world looks for more sustainable sources of protein, the popularity of eggs universally continues to rise. But here in Australia, we love our eggs more than most. Aussies eat 18.9 million eggs every day. In fact, consumers down under now eat up to 40% more eggs than they did a decade ago. So when it comes to Aussies, what's the most favourite way to eat eggs? Well, we're on par with the global trend. Most Australians prefer their eggs to be scrambled. Before I continue, thank you to the Stock Feed Manufacturers Council of Australia, particularly Fiona Taylor for your kind invitation to address your branch meeting today. I'd also like to acknowledge Duncan Rowland for his ongoing interest in the egg industry. Without stock feeds, we wouldn't have an industry. Today, I want to provide you with a deeper insight into the Australian commercial egg industry. In the next few minutes, I want to briefly touch on the national role that Egg Farmers of Australia plays, outline some facts and production figures that stem from our nation's commercial egg industry, and highlight some of the serious issues our industry faces in the coming year, namely the H5 strain of avian influenza, which overseas has passed from animals to humans. But firstly, for those not so familiar with our organisation, let me outline a little bit more about Egg Farmers of Australia, or EFA as we're simply known. EFA is the industry development body for Australia's leading cage, barn and commercial free-range egg producers. We are in effect the industry's lobby voice. Our role includes advocacy at a national level on many key issues: animal welfare, biosecurity, food safety, rising costs, and government impositions that impact on egg production. We are a membership organisation funded voluntarily by egg farmers. We also have corporate members and sponsors associated with the egg sector, such as Australia's largest chick hatchery, poultry nutritionists, researchers, and poultry vets. But we receive no government funding. We have a national board of directors that is made up of representatives from each state egg farming body across the country. It might surprise you to learn that most of our members are from family-run egg farms. If you compare eggs with other Australian food industries like beef, wheat, or seafood, we have a relatively smaller national gross production value of 1.1 billion. But we punch above our weight in terms of how eggs make up one of the most affordable and essential proteins of the human diet. While not everyone can afford beef, lamb, or fish due to their high price, up to 93% of Aussie households do have eggs in their fridge. So how many laying hens and eggs does it take to satisfy consumer demand? Just over 21 million hens make up the nation's commercial egg-laying flock. If you add pullets to this list, that's the young birds yet to lay, then Australia's entire commercial flock size is made up of about 29 million pullets and layers. These birds are cared for by 528 commercial egg farms. Aussie egg farmers produce up to 19 million eggs daily, and this equates to about 6.9 billion eggs a year. There are 3 main farming systems: free range, cage, and barn laid. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, New South Wales combined with the ACT form the largest egg producing states, accounting for 36% of production, followed by Queensland, 28.6%, Victoria, 22.3%, Western Australia, 6.3%, and South Australia, 5.5%, with Tasmania coming in at 1.3%. During the current cost of living crisis, the humble egg continues to remain one of the most affordable sources of protein for Aussie families. As such, egg consumption is on the rise nationwide. Statistics reveal that on average, Australians last year each ate 266 eggs. That's about 15.5 kilos of eggs per person. With our nation's population expected to exceed 28 million people in the future, egg consumption is anticipated to increase annually to 300 eggs per person. At a recent egg industry forum in Sydney, we heard that migrants in particular play a huge role in the rise in the number of eggs used in cooking. Migrants are bringing with them new ways to flavour and cook eggs to Australia, which helps to maintain their popularity on the breakfast, lunch, and dinner table. In the next 2 years, egg consumption in Australia is expected to increase even further. I mentioned earlier that Australians have a surprisingly huge appetite for eggs. The same applies to many countries around the world. In Japan, people consume more eggs than any other nation in the world, eating 320 eggs a year per capita. The World Egg Organization, WEO, formerly known as the International Egg Committee, has an initiative titled Vision 365, which aims to grow the reputation of eggs on an international scale. With a decade-long plan, the WEO aims to increase global average egg consumption to 365 eggs per person each year, equating to all of us eating at least one egg a day. Such a projected increase in consumption of a healthy and affordable protein means the egg industry has a positive future. We also enjoy the inevitable reputation of providing an animal protein with the lowest carbon footprint out of any agricultural food protein in Australia. Like every farming sector in Australia, egg producers face many challenges in their bid to provide fresh eggs every day. Things like drought, floods, bushfires, interest rates, food safety legislation, the rising cost of farm inputs such as staff labour, fuel, electricity costs, property rates, and mistruths raised by animal activists are always on their minds. However, significantly in 2025, biosecurity is one of our biggest concerns. Last year, you'd recall that a major outbreak of avian influenza hit many egg farms in Victoria, New South Wales, and the ACT. Of course, this year we've again felt the impacts of AI in Victoria. Disease responses are becoming more prevalent. In 2024, around 1.3 million laying hens had to be destroyed, impacting the nation's egg supply. This led to some of the retailers placing limits on the number of eggs that consumers could purchase at one time. I'm pleased to report that the majority of farms hit by avian influenza in 2024 have since restocked with laying hens. However, it takes about 16 weeks for a chick to reach laying maturity. Therefore, it does take many months for an egg farm that has been cleared to restock after an outbreak to bring back to optimum production. However, the Australian egg industry and our federal and state governments, along with key agencies responsible for the emergency disease management, are now bracing for an even worse scenario, and that's the threat of H5. H5 is a serious strain of avian influenza or bird flu. Overseas, it has been known to infect both animals and humans. Essentially, the risk stems from wild or migratory birds making contact with hens, often on free-range farms. The Federal Department of Agricultural, Fisheries and Forestry warns that H5 bird flu is a serious and highly contagious strain that has moved quickly around the world. Australia, as of February the 2nd, 2025, was the only continent free from this strain. Wild, farmed and pet birds can all catch H5. Overseas, H5 has infected more than 500 wild bird species and more than 60 mammal species. These were mainly marine mammals and bird-eating scavengers, but cases have been detected in dairy cattle, cats, goats, alpacas, pigs and horses. The Australian egg industry is therefore susceptible to the disease should it occur on our shores. Egg Farmers of Australia continues to have ongoing engagement with DAFF as all animal food industries and agencies work together on a response to the looming H5 threat at a national level. Last year, Egg Farmers of Australia requested that the federal government set up a national poultry register of farmers and backyard operators to opt in to receive emergency disease alerts should H5 be detected here. After working with Animal Health Australia on this suggestion, we've received news that a register should be set up. Aside from the issue of dead birds, Australian egg farmers would face a further issue if a H5 outbreak occurred. This is in the form of meeting the dollar cost of any national or state response. In Australia, when our industry is impacted by such a disease, we must pay back to the government a share for the costs of responding to and managing the outbreak, as well as any compensation that's lawfully due to the farmer for culling their livestock. Such costs are borne by all egg farmers in the form of a national levy paid over many years through a day-old chick levy at our hatchery. Compensation applies to the birds, packaging, and things on farm, but certainly not to the loss of business during that time. When a farmer receives no income during the time and their egg farm is cleared, it takes a long time to go back to full-scale production. Recently, farmers are considering insurance options for impacts of avian influenza now that a product has been made available. At the end of 2024 and beginning of 2025, you might have seen a lower supply of eggs in your local supermarket. Some supermarkets even ration the number of cartons that you could buy. So why was there seemingly a lower supply than usual? There's several factors, and one factor, which I just outlined, was the avian influenza impact on egg production. The disease required laying flocks on infected farms to be destroyed. As mentioned before, it's good news that farms have been able to restock. The second reason was due to high seasonal demand. Being Christmas time, there's lots of cooking going on, long summer holidays, back to school lunches, and post-holiday work lunches. The holidays and celebratory periods increase the demand for fresh Aussie eggs. But thirdly, the industry is facing a transitional period as some egg farms transition from cage egg production to barn-laid or free-range production systems. This is in anticipation of a phase-out of conventional caged eggs in many states, as a result to Australia's animal welfare standards and guidelines for poultry. It takes time and capital expenditure to establish new farming infrastructure. Retailers have put up signs apologising for fewer eggs on the shelf, but this is because retailers have a preference for barn-laid or free-range eggs. Cage eggs are available in many independent stores. We need all production systems to meet demand: cage, barn, and free-range. That's why we want to see cage facilities remain and not be phased out completely to provide stability of egg supply and give consumers choice. Egg Farmers of Australia expects that egg production will increase throughout the course of 2025 and a greater supply will become available. The future of any industry relies on younger generations having the interest to work in the sector and one day take over the reins as future leaders. To this end, Egg Farmers of Australia also hosts a group called Gen Egg. This is a group of people aged 40 and under to get together to share knowledge and ideas for the future of the industry. In conclusion, once again, thank you for allowing me to speak to you today about the importance of Australia's commercial egg industry. To recap, in Australia, eggs remain among the cheapest and healthiest forms of protein for Australian families to consume. A single person eats 266 eggs a year, and our egg farmers dispatch 19 million eggs daily. Egg Farmers of Australia has an ongoing social media campaign featuring many of our members who state that we are proud Aussie egg farmers, and indeed, as I've just outlined, they have much to be proud about. On that note, it's time for me to scramble. As I do, I'll leave you with an excellent slice of research about the humble egg. The colour of an eggshell is determined by the breed of the hen, but it doesn't affect the taste or quality. Older eggs are easier to peel because they have larger air cells. If you have fresh eggs, just put in a handful of salt when you're cooking them. They'll peel much easier. Cloudy egg whites indicate a fresh egg, while clear egg whites indicate an older egg. You can predict a hen's egg colour by looking at their earlobes. A hen will most likely lay brown eggs if they have red earlobes. Hens which lay white eggs probably have white earlobes. Speaking of earlobes, thank you for taking the time to listen to me for today's address. I'm Melinda Hashimoto, CEO of Egg Farmers of Australia. I wish you all the best for the remainder of your meeting and welcome any questions. Thank you.